Hi guys, this is Warwick from Casual Chess, back for another 5-minute game today. I'm going to start with e4. I'm playing as white against an opponent from the United States. c6, Nf3 Qb6, and nc3. So my opponent's got his queen out rather early, that's interesting. Not a big problem for me at the moment. He's developing his bishop over there. Takes and retakes. Reasonable development for me here at the moment. I'll develop my second bishop to Bd3, defending the pawn on the e4 square. Castles, castles. Okay, so in my opinion my development is better here, and I say that because I've got two bishops and a knight out in the game, as well as the pawns on the d4 and d5 square. So my opponent's development is not too bad. He's got a pretty decent pawn advance with those three pawns, and now those two knights. However, I will say that my pawns are a little bit more advanced up the board, and I don't really see the benefit for my opponent to be playing in this way, advancing now with c5. I'll simply play e5 in retaliation. Now, wanting to take on e5, but kind of wanting to take on c5 as well. I don't think I will do that. Taking on c5 allows my opponent to move his knight to c5 in retakes. So I'll ignore that for the moment, and instead what I'll do is I will play I'm wondering now, I really slowed down my moves. I'm looking at something like knight to g5 over here. However, knight to g5 does threaten on h6. Yeah, why not? Why not play knight to g5? Okay, going to advance quickly up the board on the king side here at the moment. I'll play h4 to achieve that. Still expecting the knight on d5 to take my bishop on c3. Hasn't happened yet, but there we go now. Okay. We've got that retake there. That's going to force my opponent to just keep an eye on the c5 pawn at the moment. I'm still going to advance up the board here with the h4 attack. h4 attack gets played now. Sorry, h5 rather. And the question for me will be, will I take on g6 or will I not? I think what we'll do is we will play a rook lift, and I'll actually play to e4 rather than e3, so that I can play rook a e1 and then rook e1 e3. That's the plan anyway. Okay, so I'm advancing down the board now. This probably means I'm going to have to get out of the way. Rook h4, threatening the pawn on h7. And now after something like c4, I've got a place to run to. Now, I was tempted to actually retake with the queen, but I'm not sure that I will do that. You know what, I will actually. Okay. Be4 rather, to threaten the the rook on the a8 square. That I believe is a mistake because it now allows rook h7. Rook takes on h7. Okay, still not sure whether this is a mistake or not from my opponent. but we will soon see. I'm very tempted to make a move like knight takes on e6, but look, I think what we will do is we will get that knight off the board with the rook. We'll allow a trade here. I'm quite content with this at the moment. We don't necessarily have an advantage, but I believe I've got more active pieces and my opponent's pawns are a little bit separated. I'm also going to force my opponent to have to keep an eye on the a6 square. We'll develop to rook d6. And to me at the moment it looks like a good square for my rook to be on. My bishop to be on, the e4 square. No way for him to really kick that off, except with his own bishop, which may not be ideal. Rook d8 now. Rook d8 is good, it pins the bishop to my opponent's rook. I will admit to running out of time a little bit here, not ideal. I am also going to take on the g6 square defended here. Once again back to the rook c6 square. My pieces, I would say, are fairly defended here. Hoping to lock the board down and use up some of my opponent's time, forcing him to deal with problems. Time for me also to develop my pieces up the board. Okay, interesting move there. What I will do is I will allow that at this time. Oh, sorry, actually, that was a mistake. I didn't actually mean to click there. That is a check. Rather, what we will do is we will trade off the board. We have this opportunity to trade now, so I'll force these trades with my opponent, and with my one pawn advantage hopefully advance up the board there. I realise I have a slight issue along the C file. This is a little bit dangerous, but it looks like I've blocked that off reasonably well. I have the option to advance along the G file as well, this pawn here. And in fact that's actually what I'm going to do now. G4. Good take there. And after king d3, there's really no way for my opponent to win this game. The question is, do we have the time to finish? Okay, retaking there. And we'll start advancing up the board. So, no way for my opponent to catch this. Now, I'm not sure that I'll get the most even or acceptable checkmate with the queen here, but the main thing is that I do it appropriately and don't get stalemate. Although, knowing me, it is entirely possible that I will in fact get stalemate. We will soon see. Can I avoid the stalemate? There we go. So game over. I did avoid that stalemate. We did get checkmate with the queen. A couple of errors from my opponent there. However, I think they played reasonably well. What we'll do is we'll get into the analysis now and we'll see the overall outcome. I'll be back in a second. Thanks guys. Okay guys, we're back with the analysis now, and as you can see the game went pretty well in my favour from start to finish, with one exception, and that is this move that I'm about to show you now. Rook to d6. Now why is this a problem? Well, the main reason is because king e5. So after king e5, I'm actually forked by the king there. I simply didn't think of this. Think of that king as an aggressive piece in this circumstance, and that's why I allowed that blunder. So thankfully my opponent didn't actually take advantage of this, and you'll see that the game actually followed after rook d6, a5. This gives me an opportunity to defend my bishop on the e4 square by playing f3. Now after this, it's no big deal when my opponent advances to king e5. I can simply run around the board a bit with that rook quite fearlessly. Eventually to g8, which apparently is a mistake, although it does win a pawn. And from here, again, running around the board, do have that pawn advantage. I can give a couple of checks, and this has got quite a lot of time for me to advance up the board. So, okay, a pretty simple win, I would say, in the end. Once I managed to get that advantage and really begin to convert it, once we had fewer pieces on the board, from about, with that exception, from about here onwards, after knight drops back, rook takes, knight takes, rook takes, and so on. We get some pieces off the board. That was a fairly easy win. Not because I had any concrete advantage at this point, but simply because my opponent's blunders meant that I was able to get up the board, get active, get moving, and because of those isolated pawns. So, okay, pretty happy with that win overall. Checking up in the top right hand corner, you can see that my accuracy was slightly higher than my opponent's, although we both had the same number of best moves, and a couple more excellent moves for him, and a couple more good moves for me. But it was really the differences in the blunders. 2 for me, 1 for my opponent, although that was a worse blunder, and 1 missed win as well for my opponent. So some improvement on either side. A little bit of a long game, quite a few moves involved in that one, but we got away with that win, and we really only had one major error. Although there are other times, as you can see here, when my advantage could have been more concrete and I failed to convert. So probably suggests to me that it's time to go back to the tactics trainer on chess.com and improve my tactical awareness. So, okay, hopefully you enjoyed that game though. What I'll do is I will film a couple more, and I'll be back in the next few days with my uploads. I'll see you guys when those come around. Hope you enjoyed this video and any others that are upcoming in the future, and good luck in your own chess. I'll see you next time guys. Thanks. Bye.